It's the new year, which means it's time to get started on our reading goals. Not only how many books we're going to be reading this year, but we have to start thinking about what things we want to achieve when it comes to our reading experience as a whole. And of course, we're going to be talking about January's TBR because we need to start off the year right, thinking and planning what books we're going to be reading. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lixie and this is Lixie et al. Happy New Year. I hope you had an amazing holiday season and are very excited to start your reading journey for 2024. On this video, like I mentioned on the intro, I'm going to go through my goals for this year, and also I'm going to be talking about my January TBR, which is going to be very interesting because I typically don't do TBRs. I am a huge mood reader, which means that even if I set a TBR, it's very likely I'm not going to stick to it, but we're still gonna do it and see how that goes. Let's jump right in and start talking about reading goals for 2024. My first reading goal obviously is the quantitative reading goal, which I think this is what most people do. I'm not necessarily sure how many people do other goals aside from this, but this is typically what I see the most on social media. So this year I plan to read 25 books. The reason why I set that goal is because I've been setting my goal higher and higher every year. And the higher I set it, the more I find that I'm turning it into a competition against myself instead of actually enjoying my reading experience. I've been putting a lot of pressure on myself. I've been trying to surpass my reading goal by a lot every year. And that has put me in a state of urgency instead of actually stepping back and enjoying the reading. The other thing that has been happening with that is that I've been focusing on audiobooks because I'm able to get through them really fast and then leave my TBR just stranded there waiting for me collecting dust. Which takes me to my second goal. My second goal is focusing on my physical books. Yes, I struggle with reading quickly when I'm reading in a physical form, which is why I tend to listen to a lot of audiobooks. But I love the feel of a physical book. I love buying physical books. And of course, I don't want to just have them sit on my shelf and not be read. So I want to make a dent on my physical TBR. And that's also the reason why I set it to 25 books for my reading goal. Because yes, I will be definitely counting every book that I read regardless of the format. But even if I surpass the 25 book mark because I ended up reading a bunch of audiobooks or ebooks, I still want to make sure that I reach at least that 25 book mark with 25 physical books. So if you follow me on Goodreads, you're going to probably see me surpass that 25 book goal really quickly, but that's just because I am probably listening to audiobooks. But just know that I'm going to keep going because I want to make sure that I read those 25 physical books this year. Following that train of thought, my third goal for this year in terms of reading is also creating and experiencing a more immersive dynamic when I read. I want to get myself inside the story, inside those books, and feel like I'm there right by the character's side. I want to be able to understand the books that I'm reading more instead of just kind of having an idea of what happened. I tend to zone out a lot when I'm reading. And that's typically the reason why I prefer audiobooks, because I can listen while I'm doing something else to control my brain so it doesn't zone out so much. But I do end up zoning out anyway. So I want to work on that. I want to find ways in which I can concentrate better. And if I find myself zoning out, then taking more breaks rather than just pushing through without actually knowing what happened before on what I was reading. And so that's definitely something that I will try to keep very present in my head when I'm reading. Hence the reason why I want to take more time to read physical books, because they force me to slow down. And if I slow down, I will likely be more immersed in the story. Now, let's talk books, because chances are that's the reason why you clicked on this video. So let's go through my TBR, which includes books that I have already started and books that I'm planning to start. The first book on my January TBR is Cruel Boy by Clarissa Wilde. And this one, I am cheating a little bit because I am pretty much almost done with this book at the time that you are watching this. So I pretty much kind of set myself for success already finishing a book early on. And I have to say that I am loving this book. Cruel Boy is a dark romance, but it's set in a high school, a fancy high school scenario. So you have all of these rich kids doing questionable things. You have a double POV between Nate and Sam, who are not necessarily enemies, but they definitely don't get along. Obviously, Mr. Nate is the quote-unquote boyfriend of one of the popular girls, and he's also the quarterback. So you know the influence that this kid has in the school. Then we have Sam, who is just your average girl, and she has a little issue going on with Nate's girlfriend, which makes things definitely difficult for her. Now, the problem is that in the summer, Nate did something that may get him into a lot of trouble. And accidentally, Sam was the only one there when he did it. And she just so happened to take some pictures of what happened. Now, in the semester back at school, Nate finds out that she has pictures that serve as proof of what he did, and he's trying to get Sam to hand them over. So now we embark in this adventure as they become enemies and hopefully lovers, and how Nate is trying to get those pictures from her, and he goes at insane extents to get those pictures from her. So we are going to be watching them fall in love, even though they know that's wrong. She has a moral dilemma because she's questioning why she's feeling a certain type of way about him when she knows what he did. And he's questioning why he's feeling a certain way about her when he has all this pressure on his shoulder, because obviously as the quarterback and as all the things that have been going on at home, he is expected to go pro after he graduates. So not only is he holding this very intense secret, his career and his entire life is on the line if this information gets out. So if you want to know what the heck happens and what the secret is, I highly, highly recommend you go check out Cruel Boy by Clarissa Wilde, because it's such a good story. The next book on my January TBR is A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson. And this has been a book that I've had on my TBR for a while. I found it through someone that I follow on Instagram. The way that she was talking about the book really caught my attention. So I've been meaning to read it for a while now. This book follows the first bride of Dracula, Constata. And she is taken from being a medieval peasant all the way to being a bride. And then she figures out that her husband is capable of doing very terrible things. So now she embarks in this adventure, trying to figure out what it is that he does, uncover his secrets. And of course, there are people that she loves whose lives are on the line because she is in this process of uncovering whatever terrible things he has done. So I am very much looking forward to reading this book. I'm actually going to be reading it on my Kindle, but from my library, which is very exciting. I definitely will be making it my mission to read more books through my library, although I already do read a lot of books through my library, but I want to improve that even more in 2024. So this is the first book that I have on my list that I will be getting from the digital collection. The next book on my January TBR is When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill, and this is definitely going to be a very interesting read. It is a historical fiction, and it is set in the 1950s, We have a magical aspect to it, fantasy, a lot of weird things going on. In this book, we have something called the Dragoning, which is an event that happened in 1955 and basically means that a bunch of women, specifically those that were wives and mothers, ended up turning into dragons, destroying everything in their path, and then taking for the skies. Nowhere to be found, and they did not come back. So now we have Alex, who is a young girl, trying to figure out what happened. But the problem is that the society has turned this event into a taboo. They don't want anyone talking about it, and they're almost acting as if the people who ended up turning never existed. This was the case in Alex's life, where her aunt Marla did end up turning, and her mother, who did not turn, acts as if she never existed. So now she has a father who pretty much doesn't care about her. She has a mother who has turned overprotective, and a cousin who is obsessed with this situation. And so we have Alex trying to battle all of these situations while trying to find out the truth, especially why her aunt turned and her mother did not. So there's a lot of rage and a lot of situations, very strong topics in this book that really drew me in. I have not started yet, but I will definitely be doing so soon because I am very intrigued as to what's going to happen. The next book on my TBR is another one that I already started reading in December, and that is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Meyer, or Mayer. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that last name. But this book is a romantic comedy mixed with fantasy. And I have to say that starting reading this book gave me very strong ACOTAR vibes, because we have Evie, who is the sole provider for her family. Her dad is ill, her sister is younger, so it is her job to bring food to the table. But as of the moment when we start reading the story, she is unemployed and trying desperately to find some job that she can make money so that she can feed her family. She goes into the woods frustrated with her luck, and she happens to meet the evil villain, the one person in the entire kingdom that people say to stay away from and that claim he has done horrible things. They say that those who encounter him never return to the village. And so here she is meeting this man that is currently being hunted down by the royal guards, and basically she accidentally helps him escape. Now he offers her a job as his assistant because he is in desperate need of one, and of course she accepts because she's in desperate need of a job. So now we are getting into the story, watching these two characters as their very different personalities start to mix together. And I am not very far into the book, but I am really hoping that this is going to turn into a very cute dynamic where she, that is such a sunshiny golden retriever character, basically helps him bring down his walls and fall in love. So like I said, I'm not very far into the book, but I have high expectations for it. This is going to be a book that I'm probably going to be dragging to my February TBR as well, because I'm actually annotating it for one of my friends. We are doing a little bit of a book switcheroo, so she already read it and annotated her copy. I'm in the process of reading and annotating my copy, and then we're going to be switching copies just as gifts for each other. So I'm taking my time with this because I want to make sure that I add a lot of fun annotations and I actually do grasp the story to follow and write things that are, that make sense in the book. So this book is definitely one that I'm taking my time with. Next book is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. And of course, I know that many of you already finished reading this. Yes, I got the book on release day at like 7 in the morning. So should I have finished this book already? Yes. Have I? No. I'm probably not even at the 50% mark just yet. I have been taking it very slowly. It is a fantastic book, as we already know, and every time I sit down to read it, I thoroughly enjoy it. The problem is that for some reason, I am not getting engrossed in it enough for me to binge read. So I am taking my time with it because, again, like with Assistant to the Villain, this is a book that I want to savor and really understand what happens, because I read Fourth Wing as an audiobook and I flew through it so quickly that I actually don't remember a lot of the story. So I want to make sure that with Iron Flame, I actually do remember what's going on. So I'm taking my time with that one. You will probably see it in a couple more TBRs throughout the year, but I'm definitely expecting to soon reach that point in the book where I just can't put it down. So let's see what happens with that one. I am excited about it, but definitely haven't been picking it up as much as I expected. The next book is These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan, and I actually feel bad about this book. I bought this book in the summer when I went to Puerto Rico, and I got it in Spanish because I wanted to read a fantasy in Spanish. I wanted to read something in Spanish because I felt like my Spanish vocabulary has been getting affected because of the fact that I speak and read in English so much now that I moved to the US. And so that book was supposed to be my comeback into reading in Spanish. Now, the situation was that when I got it, I didn't know it was These Hollow Vows. I thought it was just one of these unknown standalone fantasies, and I was really looking forward to read it. The problem is that the way that the book was translated into Spanish isn't really vibing with me. Obviously, I do understand what's going on. Like, I know Spanish. That's my main language. So I know what's going on. It's just that the translation isn't the best. And yes, I could get it in English and just read it that way, but I really want to give it a chance because I do want to at least finish a book in Spanish. Since I already have that one, I've been really trying to get through it. I'm hoping that my issue is more of a mood thing rather than an issue with the story. But we'll see what happens. I definitely don't want to DNF it, but if it becomes super, super hard, I might have to do that. Or just replace it and read it in English. The next book on my list has similar issues to the previous one, but not for the same reason. This is The Priority of the Orange Tree. And this book, I can't even begin to explain how many times I've had to restart this book. So yet again, here I am attempting to restart it. I have been trying to approach this book as an audiobook rather than a physical book, and I just haven't been able to get into it. It's been really hard to understand the world and what's going on without zoning out. I had this same issue with Furyborn, which I have actually not given another chance, but I will eventually. So Priority of the Orange Tree is on my January TBR, and I'm going to attempt again to read it. Now, I think this time I might be successful because when I first started trying to read this book, I was very new to audiobooks, which means that I was not used to reading things that were so long in terms of audiobook duration. Now, I have listened to books that are way longer than this book. Another thing that was against me when I first tried to read this book was that I was not used to the fantasy genre. I have already read a couple of fantasy books that have been more on the complex side, on the more world building side. So now I feel like my brain is prepared for this book and that I am more used to the dynamic of the genre. So hopefully this time I will make it through Priority of the Orange Tree. If this does not succeed, then my next attempt is going to be trying to read it in a physical form. So I'm probably going to try to get it from the library. I was going to buy it in Spanish to see if the language would have helped me, but now I'm worried to do so because of what's going on with These Hollow Vows. Obviously, these books are not going to be the same, so I might find that easier to read Priority of the Orange Tree in Spanish. But for now, we're going to give the audiobook a chance once again and see what happens. The next book on my list is Hair of Uncertain Magic, which is the second installment in the Wimbrow House series. This book follows the events of Keeper of Enchanted Rooms, which is book 1, and it starts right where the other one ended. In book 1, we have Merritt and Hulda, who are trying to figure out what the heck is happening with the house that Merritt inherited. This house has magical powers and doesn't seem to like Merritt as much as you would think, for a magical house. And we have Hulda, who belongs to the biker organization, which focuses on helping tame these houses with magical powers. So she's assigned to Wimbrow House and helps Merritt go through the motions with the house and figure out what the source is and how to get the house to behave. There's this evil person that used to be in Hulda's life that is now trying to come back for revenge. And we see how that drives not only Merritt to protect her, but also the romantic situation that happens between Hulda and Merritt. And of course, some new discoveries of Merritt's life. The second book, the one that I'm going to be reading this month, follows the discoveries about Merritt's lineage. And I am thinking that we're going to dive really, really deeply into his life and where he comes from. So I'm very excited about this book, very excited to learn about Merritt's background and to see him become the person that he never thought he could be. To finish off the list, I have two books that go together, and that is Crown of Midnight and The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. These are both part of the Throne of Glass series that I have already started. I already read Throne of Glass, and there's been a lot of different opinions on the order to read these books, specifically where and when to read The Assassin's Blade. I decided to go third, mostly because of a description that I saw in another video, and I honestly don't remember what it was, but the way that they explained the difference between reading it first and then reading it third definitely convinced me to read it third. And also because I'm reading these through my library, so obviously I have to read based on availability of the books. This brings us to a total of 10 books, which I know are pretty much half of the number that I said I wanted to read for the entire year. But like I mentioned, I want to reach the 25 book mark in terms of physical books. So these are all combinations between ebooks, audiobooks, and physical books. I have only 3 physical books on this list, so the rest are a combination of audio and KU. I will definitely not be making it through all 10. I know that. I am just setting these as my options for the month, but I know that I might get through maybe half of them. I might also end up switching some books with other books that I have on my radar. It's all going to depend on how my mood goes as the month progresses. But as of right now, these are the ones that have my attention, the ones that I want to get through. So you will have to wait until my January wrap up at the end of the month to see what I actually ended up reading. Now with that, I am going to be ending this video. Let me know in the comments what are your priority reads for the year and what's on your TBR for January. Also, let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts are on them, and if you enjoyed them, if you did not enjoy them, or whatever it is that you think about them. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so, and click that notification button so that you know whenever I upload a new video. Don't forget to follow me on Threads, Instagram, and TikTok as Lixie et al. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!